What's going on, my fellow Kino Lord? So I just got out of a screening for Past Lives, which is written and directed by Celine Song. This is a film that interested me quite a bit, not only because of the buzz that it was getting from not only a lot of critics, but a lot of people that are part of my Discord server were really loving it. But it's an A24 distribution, so like just from that alone, that kind of automatically has my intrigue. And you know, I really didn't know anything about it besides what the title kind of suggests, because every time this trailer would be presented to me on social media, I would just kind of skip past it. Just to cut right to the chase, coming out of the theater, I thought it was pretty damn good. To be honest with you, the first two acts of this film, I wasn't really sure how much I was going to like this film, because I thought the first two acts were decent, but in a way it felt like it was lacking in certain areas. Like for me personally, I felt that like I was just having trouble connecting with these characters, because I feel like for a while, I don't want to say that the story and the characters are surface level, but it kind of has just enough substance to keep me interested for a while, but not necessarily super invested and super connected with the story and characters. I think that mainly has to do with a few things. The first one being, you know, perhaps for me, it was because of the fact that we don't really get much of we don't get much of the depiction of their childhood and when they first connected when they were younger. I mean, it feels like that part just kind of flies by, and I'm pretty sure that's on purpose. It's by design. But kind of lacking that type of depth with the connection they shared as children made it a little bit harder to connect when they reconnect later on in life. And then there's also an element of the fact that, especially with the female lead in this film, she comes from a very wealthy and upper class upbringing and lifestyle. And the film didn't really present much conflict or struggle within herself, and her personality didn't really, again, I think that's part of the problem, that I just kind of had trouble connecting with, you know, her desire to reconnect with that kind of childhood sweetheart she has in the film. Not saying that, like, if you're rich, I don't care about you, but it just didn't seem to have as much insight into her character and into her personality that I wanted at the time. But I will say that the third act of this film, I think, is absolutely incredible. Honestly, it might be perfect. The third act of this film, I think, is phenomenal, and very emotionally resonant. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like the final 2 minutes of this film, I got a lot more emotional than I expected. I didn't cry, but I was getting close to at least shedding one tear. It was, again, I really didn't expect to be that moved by it emotionally, with the way it ended and just the third act in general. Honestly, the female lead in this film has her actual husband character, and I think the way that her husband character was incorporated into this entire situation was incredibly well done. I think that the writer, Celine Song, you could tell that she took a lot of time really thinking about how he was going to interact with not only, you know, the person that she has, you know, kind of shared a life with in the past, but also how is he going to react to his own wife, and, you know, how is he going to feel about this entire situation. And I think his feelings, and really their feelings in general that they shared with each other about the situation, was very well written and very well fleshed out in a very insightful way that made me understand and feel for their characters a lot. There's just one scene in particular with her husband and her just laying down in bed at night, and they have this really type of profound conversation, specifically more with the husband character, on how he feels about her and how he feels about him, and his place and everything. And it was a really, really well written and just well acted scene. Honestly, might be my favorite scene in the entire film. It was really, really well done. That's kind of the moment the third act kind of kicks in, and from that point on, I just loved every minute of the film. Overall, like, it builds up to something that does get quite deep, that does get emotionally resonant. Thematically speaking, it all kind of comes full circle, and you can just tell that there was just a lot of thought poured into it. And it works. It was compelling. And again, I was surprised because the first two acts of this film I thought were decent, but didn't really do anything for me until that third act hit. Like, that was when I was fully invested, felt emotionally connected with the characters and the story, and thematically speaking was the most compelling. It's the most compelling element of the film all around. The most compelling act by far, at least in my opinion, of course. So I mean, yeah, I think, especially after now finishing the movie in its entirety, I can understand why people are really digging this film. I can really understand it. There's a lot here. I mean, thematically, it actually does get quite dense. I mean, for a while, again, as I mentioned, it felt kind of surface level, but there's a lot in here that I think a lot of people can relate to. A lot of things that people constantly think about. What if they chose a different path in life? This is one element of the film, especially this one scene in particular, in regards to this conversation that they have, where the female character kind of has to think about whether or not she's going to take the rocky path or the easy path. The rocky path being more stressful and more dangerous, but yet can be profoundly more rewarding than the easier path that, yeah, it's rewarding, but again, not nearly as compelling or really worthy of a life worth living in comparison to the rocky path. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to go on too long here. Just know that I think by the end of it, I think that this film does come full circle, and was, again, quite surprised with the route that it went, because I was impacted by it. So, with that being said, I'll give Past Lives a strong 7 out of 10. Because the first two acts for me were like, just kind of, they were like 6 out of 10 material. It's good, but I'm not really feeling all that invested. And then the third act is like a damn near 10 out of 10. Maybe, like, it's just really, really great filmmaking. So I'm wondering if upon rewatch, I'll feel differently about the first two acts, knowing what this film results in. But for right now, I'll be a little bit more reserved, because I definitely remember how I felt about those first two acts. But anyway, yeah. Those are my thoughts on Past Lives, guys. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.